also go to the irs.gov website and type in the search bar 6744. That is the test and retest, because we're actually going to do the scenario 8 for Richard Roosevelt. So if you don't have that physical publication 6744, again, you can open up another window and into irs.gov, in the search bar, type 6744, and it's going to allow you to pull up that publication. And we want to make sure that we go to page 99 in that publication. This is our test and retest booklet. So again, like I've stated before you go into your Link and Learn to take your advanced certification, as well as the ethics or intake, if you have not taken those, I highly recommend that you answer the test as well as the retest in this 6744, and then you can go into your Link and Learn account and actually take those certifications. Because there is an option that you may receive, may have to answer questions from the test or retest. So irs.gov, and then in the search bar, 6744. And it's going to be on page 99. And so I'm actually going to end this PowerPoint presentation, and I'm actually going to go over into my web browser, and so we can walk through that scenario. Okay, so we're here in our, if you go to just the Link and Learn certification, so linkandlearncertification.com, we're going to go to that home page. So where you go to the same website that you have taken your ethics as well as your intake. So again, that is linkandlearncertification.com. And then to your right, under quick links, you should see Practice Lab. And we're going to make sure we do Practice Lab. Okay, and so we are clicking on our Practice Lab, and so that is going to open up, and you should then see a window that says Access, Link, and Learn Taxes. And then at the bottom, it's going to have you to enter in a password. That password is going to be Train Pro Web, and it's all in capital letters. So again, it's Train Pro Web, all capital letters, and we're going to log in. And you're going to actually have to create an account if you have not been here previously. So we're just going to hover over Create an Account. And I'm going to give you all a few minutes to enter in this information. It's going to ask you for your email address, a username, and a password. I do want to let you know that that password, it has to be 15 characters, and I believe it also has to include a special character. So uppercase, lowercase, 15 characters, and it also includes a special character. And when we get to program type, you're going to just select the VITA. and there is no site identification number. So right under program type, it has site identification number. So you can use the same username that you use for Link and Learn, but for the password, again, it has to be 15 characters long. If your Link and Learn password to do your certifications, if it's not 15 characters, if it doesn't meet the password requirements, you will need a password just for the practice lab. And you also want to make sure that you select your security question and answer to create your account. So giving you all a few more minutes to get this set up. Again, your email address, a username, and password. The password has to be 15 characters long, a combination of lowercase and uppercase, as well as a special character. And the program type is VITA. There is no site identification number. And we'll do the security question and security answer, and you should then be able to create your account. And if you don't mind, if once you have that created, if you could just shoot a chat for yes to our panelists, or well, it would be best if we're still waiting on you, need some additional assistance, reach out to our panelists, or you can hit no, and so we'll know to give you just a few more minutes. Okay, just a few more minutes for those that may need it. Okay, just 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna go back to the other page. Again, you need to input your email address, your username, create a username, password that is 15 characters long, combination of uppercase, lowercase, and a special character. The program type is VITA, no site identification number, and answering creating a security question and answer. All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to enter in my information. And so while I'm entering in mine, I will allow you all to enter in yours. And we will sign in. And so at the very top, we will have the practice lab home, and it will have the go to practice area. This go to practice area, this is where we will be going and where you will need to go to respond to enter in information for the advanced scenarios 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to click on the go to practice area and we're waiting for it to launch. And so you're able to see where it has our practice lab. And this is created because it is mimicking the TaxSlayer where we actually complete the tax returns on there. So you will be able to use the same functions. They have made some updates to some of the forms. When the site coordinators, instructors, when we actually took our certification, it probably had a few things that were not up and working, but everything will be ready to go when we launch we launch this coming tax season. But you'll be able to see the same functionality where you can find, where you can go to input information for the tax forms, where you're able to input information for the tax client. So we're actually going to be working on, we're going to also do advanced scenario 8. So one of the big things that we want to point out before we actually input information in a tax return, we actually want to review and see what information we're working with. So uploading the 6744 for you all. we have our advanced scenario 8, Richard Roosevelt. So we want to make sure that we read the scenario before we input any information into TaxSlayer. So Richard is 45 and single. His tax information was stolen and the IRS has issued an identity protection PIN. This is something that we're going to be actually talking about in day 2 training. But that is definitely something that he needs in order to electronically file the tax return. Richard's mother, Martha, lives in a nursing home in a neighboring state. In 2020, she received $7,800 in Social Security income. Although she uses this money for her support, Richard has records showing he provided over half of her support in 2020. So that ties into who is his filing status, as well as who is a qualifying relative. Richard lost his job in March when the state shut down due to the coronavirus pandemic. He received unemployment compensation for June and July. It is likely that a lot of our tax clients will be having unemployment forms, tax forms. It will possible that a lot of our clients will have unemployment compensation. Richard began a landscape service in April and was paid on a Form 1099 NEC. He also received cash receipts of $325 from clients not reported on a tax form. Richard uses the cash method of accounting. He uses business code 561730. He has receipts for the following expenses: used lawnmower, $236, business cards, $15, rake, $19, work gloves, $25, lunches, $140, work clothes suitable for everyday use, $175, lunchbox, $25. Richard has a detailed mileage log reporting mileage from his home to his first client's home, and mileage from his last client's home to his home is 620 miles. In addition, on the days Richard worked for multiple clients, he kept track of the mileage from the first client's home to the second client's home in case that mileage was also deductible. He logged 312 miles. That is not included in the 620. The total mileage for his car for 2020 was 9,543 miles. Of that, 8,611 were personal miles. He placed his only vehicle, a pickup truck, in service. It has on here March the 15th, but TaxSlayer has an adjustment for April 15th. He will take the standard mileage rate. Richard took an early distribution from his IRA in April to help pay his living expenses while he was out of work due to the COVID-19. Richard did not repay this distribution by the due date of his 2020 tax return. The next page, Richard settled with his credit card company on an outstanding bill and brought the Form 1099-C to the site. He isn't sure how it will impact his tax return for tax year 2020. Richard determined he was solvent as of the date of the canceled debt. Richard went back to work in July and received a Form W-2. Richard doesn't have enough to itemize this year and will take the standard deduction. Richard received a $1,200 economic income tax payment in April of 2020. He did not have any insurance in 2020. So now that we have went over the scenario, we also want to take a glance at the intake form. We want to review the intake form before we input any information in TaxSlayer. So making sure we have the taxpayers, their personal information that's filled out, their name, are they a U.S. citizen, their phone number, the address. And on here for this scenario, you will see where it has your number or your city, your state, or your zip. That's something that you will actually be able to create. The date of birth, a job title, and was the taxpayer and her spouse totally and permanently disabled, or were they a full-time student or legally blind? Special note to box 10, can anyone claim you or your spouse as a dependent? And then we have 11, have you and your spouse or dependents been a victim of tax-related identity theft or been issued the identification protection PIN? And we see that Richard says yes, and at the beginning of that scenario, it provided us with his PIN number. It shows that as of December 31st, he was never married, but he has someone listed in his home, which is his mother. On there, it has her date of birth, the relationship. So actually, sorry, no, it has the number of months lived in the home. It is 0. But as we learned when it talks about qualifying relatives, a parent does not have to live in your home, but he did provide more than half of her support, so he's still able to list her on the tax return. She is a U.S. citizen as well as a resident on there. And then we want to make note to this box. We will be completing this with the tax client to be completed by a certified volunteer preparer. So there's just a few more additional questions that we have to follow up with the taxpayer and her spouse. And then we go to page number 2. And we also want to make note to anything that is marked yes. We will be looking for any form for any yes box. Any no, we can still just ask questions, verification questions just for clarity. And definitely if we see anything that is unsure, we want to ask additional questions. And so we're going through this form over here. Double check and make sure. Okay, so we also see on line 15, other income. They're saying there is gambling winnings, which means that we would need to ask additional questions, as well as going down to line 7, did they make any estimated tax payments? We would need to ask some clarifying questions just to confirm. On there, if these were actually estimated tax payments, if there is the federal taxes on the W-2 forms, that has already been calculated and we would already enter that in when we complete the form. So once we have reviewed the intake form, we are ready to enter in information into TaxSlayer. So I'm going to be entering it in on my side. And you're more than welcome to follow along or enter it as I'm going through it as well. And we're going to be entering information. We're going to enter in all the income information. So I'm going to click on here to start a new tax return. So this is what we click on. We're going to start a new tax return when it is a new client. If it was a return that I have already input and I'm just going back, then I would have went to client search to look for that taxpayer's name, and I would have gone back, and then once I click on their name, I can go back into the return to finish it up. But this is going to be a brand new tax return. So start the new 2020 tax return. And so we will see on page 6744, in the book 6744, on page 100, on there it has the Social Security numbers. So going back, we see the Social Security numbers, and TaxSlayer, this it's just giving us the first 3. So you're going to create the last 6 numbers. And this is for, we're inputting in the taxpayer's social. Okay, and if you get a flag for the Social Security number when you're going to start a return, that means you need to make sure that both the Social Security that you entered in at the top and the bottom, that they match. You can bypass the available taxpayer profiles. We do not need to do anything with that, and we'll go directly to start tax return. So the first thing that we see when we start the tax return is determining what is the filing status. And so that we know that Richard, he stated that he was single on there. And we also know that he does have a qualifying relative, which is his mother that lives with him. And he provided more than half of her support. So we know that he is able to file head of household. He paid more than half the cost of the keeping up the home. And again, when we talked about the qualifying relatives, a parent is one of those relatives that does not have to live with you. So we're going to select head of household and continue. And we want to enter in the taxpayer's name. And we've already entered his social on the first screen, but now we need to enter in his date of birth. And we would get that again from the intake form on that first page, which it is March the 11th, 1975. And his occupation, also on that page 1, it stated sales manager. Can the taxpayer, we would only select these if they apply. The taxpayer can be claimed as a dependent on someone else's return. No, because on the intake quality review sheet, number 10 was marked no. Taxpayer was over the age of 18 and a full-time student. No, we're not going to check that because that was in box 6 on page 1. It was no. Taxpayer is not blind nor deceased. Taxpayer wishes to contribute $3 to the presidential election campaign. That was on the 3rd page of the intake form, and that is number 2, and there was nothing checked, so we do not check anything on there. Taxpayer spouse served in a combat zone during the current year. There was nothing mentioned that nothing stated that the taxpayer was in the military. Taxpayer was a non-resident alien for any part of the year. Stated that individual was a U.S. citizen. There was no mention that he was living outside the country. Taxpayer wishes to elect to use their 2019 earned income to figure their 2020 earned income and or child tax credit. That was nothing indicated in the scenario. Taxpayer was affected by a natural disaster during the current year. The taxpayer received, sold, sent, exchanged, or otherwise acquired financial interest in a virtual currency through the current year. None of that. Taxpayer prefers to receive written communications from the IRS in a language other than English. I don't have to worry about those. And so it comes to the address and phone number. And we're going to take that information from the intake form, which was the 1551 Concord Place. And we're just going to pretty much pick up a zip code. And so the resident as of, again, we're just going to use our state. And we're going to also create a phone number. Okay, and if there is a secondary number that that the taxpayer spouse would like to provide, we could put that in secondary. If definitely we would use the second one if we could not reach them at the first one. And then we're going to hit continue. So now it takes us to our dependents or qualifying persons. So is there a dependent or qualifying person that we're going to claim on this tax return? And it would be yes. He would be able to claim his mother. So we're going to actually enter Martha Roosevelt information. And we also want to pay attention to, once we enter information for the taxpayer, some of the screens will start to auto-populate. So definitely if there is a different last name, we want to make sure that we catch that. Because in order for the IRS to accept a tax return, it has to match what is listed on the Social Security card. So we need to make sure we match first name, last name, as well as we're inputting the correct date of birth. And also make sure we are inputting the correct Social Security number. So date of birth, it is June the 2nd, 1949. The Social Security number, back on that instructional page. It says check the box if dependents does not have a social I-10. So we do have a social. Was this person a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, U.S. resident alien? And we do know yes, because that was on page 1 of the intake. Relationship. We're going to select a parent. And it has on here the number of months. We can select the other reasons. It should treat the same as the 12 months. And then additional questions that for the dependent. Was this person over the age of 18 and a full-time student at an eligible educational institution? Check if this person was disabled. If this qualifying person is not your dependent. If you wish not to claim this dependent for earned income credit purposes, check if this dependent is married. Check if this dependent made over $4,200 of income, or check if this dependent qualifies for a multiple support declaration. So we did know that she did receive Social Security income, but that was the only income that she received. So that is not going to be included in gross income. So therefore, we don't have to select the box, this dependent made over the $4,200 of income. That would be in other scenarios. And so we're selecting the other reasons for the number of months this person lived in your home, because it is for a parent that does not live with you, but they would qualify as if they are living in the home with the taxpayer. So we've entered that information. So we have taxpayer as well as qualifying dependent information into the screen. And we're going to hit continue. So we did our filing status. We did personal information as well as our dependent's qualifying person. And then right below that, it has the IRS identification, the IRS identity protection pin. And it did say that, yes, Richard, he did have a PIN. And so we're going to enter in that number, because in order to file this tax return electronically, we would have to enter in that PIN. Otherwise, it would be a paper tax return. And so this is actually updated on here. So it says, did you receive the economic income payment, the stimulus check? And so going back to those questions, it did say that yes, he did receive it. And on here it stated that he received the $1,200 on here. So we do know that that was the first stimulus payment that was released. So we're not aware of the additional $600 if he has received that. So just entering in the $1,200, and we're going to hit continue. And so now we're ready to enter in our income information. And so we do go back to page 2 of the intake, and it does say that he had W-2 income. And so we want to hit begin when we get to the W-2. And so we see that he has actually 2 W-2s. So I'm going to enter in the first one, which is the Parker Industries. And I am taking everything from this W-2 and entering it into TaxSlayer. And as you will notice, it already populated the Parker Industries, just because we've already entered information into the TaxSlayer on there. So that is something that you will notice as you are preparing tax returns, that People from maybe multiple companies, say for example Walmart, we get a lot of tax clients from Walmart. The TaxSlayer will recognize that EIN number, so it will already pre-populate the employer's name and address in there. So that will cut down a little bit on the time a little bit for us. So we've got the Parker's Industries, just going back to make sure it's entered correctly. And then we go to our wages. So that is the 7,650. And we see that after entering in the amount in box 1, it already pulled the amount in box 3 and 5. If that amount needs to be adjusted, then I would need to go to box 3 and 5 and change those. So I'm entering in the federal taxes withheld. And just to mimic everything that is listed on the tax return, I am going to fill in the state information. But again, Texas, we do not have any state tax. And so because Richard does have another W-2, we could just simply go to save and enter another return, and it'll just give me a blank W-2. Or if I hit continue, I would then go back and add the other W-2. So save and enter another. And so I'm going to enter in the XYZ Corporation. So entering in that EIN number. And just creating the last 4 digits for that EIN. And again, the XYZ Corporation has populated with the employer name as well as the address. And inputting the wages. And again, box 3 and 5 has already pre-populated. In calculating boxes 4 and 6, if they were different, I would need to go back and change. So I'm entering the federal taxes withheld, the $2,700. And then I also notice on line 13 that there is retirement. That retirement box is checked. So I want to make sure I check that box. Still entering in the state information to just mimic. And I'm going to hit continue. So I have entered in all the W-2 income information. So I'm going to hit continue to see what other income applies. So there is no state or local income tax refunds. There is no interest, income, dividends, or distributions. And then on here it goes down the 1099-R, RRB. So there's we have distributions from pensions, annuities, retirement, IRAs, and Social Security. And so we do learn that Richard did take an early distribution from his IRA. And so we do see that he took an IRA from the Essex Bank. So we're going to go and click begin. And we're going to go and add or edit a 1099-R. And it's going to ask us for the payer's ID. And entering in the payer's name and the address. But again, it's input that information in for me. And it already has the recipient's address. And so I'm going to go and enter in the gross distribution, which is $1,000. Now you're going to notice, see box 1, it's going to pull the amount in box 1 and in box 2A. Of course, for his, it is the same. But you will definitely have to change box 2A if it is different on the form. So if 2A, if it is blank, then we may have to do the simplified method worksheet that we talked about. Or if it is 0, we need to make sure that we put 0 in box 2A. So addressing everything that's on that form. So there was federal taxes withheld of $200. And it has the distribution code 1, which we learned that distribution code 1 means it is an early distribution and there is no exception. But we do learn that he took it out related to the virus, related to the pandemic. So that is an exception just for 2020. So we will be able to input how we can remedy that when we get to other taxes. And it also shows that it is an IRA SCP. So I have all the information entered that I need on this form. And I am able to hit continue. I would also let you know that if your box 1 and box 2A are different, you could have a warning message to pop up and just let you know that those box amounts are different. The pop-up message is just a warning, so you're able to hit continue and go to the next step. So this is letting us know that there are certain, there is a penalty related to that. So we're going to be able to enter that, make an adjustment for that penalty when we get to that section. So I'm just going to say this is a retirement plan on here, and I'm going to hit continue. So I have that form entered. There is no other distribution from a retirement or pension account. So I'm going to hit continue and hit continue to go back to the other income screen. So I've entered in the pension from the IRA. Below that, it has unemployment compensation. It did say that Richard received unemployment. And we actually have his 1099-G form. So we're going to hit begin. And we're going to add that form in. Okay, once I added that EIN, again, it pre-populated the name for me, as well as an address. And I have the recipient, I have Richard's information, his address. And so then I will do the unemployment compensation that he received, which is the $2,800. And he actually had them to withhold federal taxes. Federal taxes being withheld from unemployment, it is optional. And so he decided, and because he decided, they take out a standard 10%. So we've entered in his unemployment compensation. And we're going to hit go to continue. And going to continue to the next one. So we need to see what other income he received. 1099 miscellaneous. No, he doesn't have that. But right below, he does have a 1099 NEC, that non-employee compensation. So entering in the EIN from the Wrights Landscaping. And going back up here to enter in the payer's name. Okay, and I've just created a zip. Once you enter the zip code, it will recognize, it should pull in the city and state. And again, it has Richard's information already in there. And so his non-employee compensation, it's the $4,010 that he received. So we're going to hit continue. And so we have not started on his Schedule C, but he only had one 1099 NEC, so we're actually ready to go to that Schedule C. So I'm going to click Create the Schedule C. It does not say that if he has, did not say that he had a separate business name. So we are going to leave that blank. He did not have an EIN number on there. If we want for the address, we could just put in his address. And the business type. These are her list for the business codes. It did provide us with his business code on here, which was the 561730. And see, it pulled down that it's the landscaping. Then hitting continue. We also need to answer some questions about the business. He is doing the cash method of accounting. There's no inventory. And he actually started this business in 2020. So this will be the first time that he does the Schedule C for this business. He did materially participate. And there are no payments that he paid to others because that would be out of scope. He's not doing the use of a home nor clergy. So we're going to hit continue. And so we knew that we've already entered in the 1099 NEC. You see that has pulled in when we created the Schedule C. But it also told us in the interview on page 99, it also told us that he had some cash receipt income, $325 from clients not reported on a tax form. But we do know that all income, it is taxable unless it is stated that it is not. So we have to include that $325. So including that $325. And I don't see where he has any additional business income. So we're going to hit continue. And so now we're ready to enter in his expenses on here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of doing the general expenses, let's see, he doesn't have any advertising, contract labor, commission and fees, no office expense. Well, actually, sorry, we're going to go back up. He actually had business cards of $15. So that is going to go into advertising expenses. And then we'll see what other expenses he has. So we could put under supplies, or if you deem that if you think there's a more appropriate area, you can put it to that category. We can do his rake as well as his work gloves. And so that was, his rake was for $19. And the work gloves were $25. So that's going to be $44 for the supplies. So we still have a few more business expenses to enter in. But we're going to go to the car and truck expenses. So this vehicle, it stated that he had a pickup truck. So that's all we're going to put in here is just pickup truck. Date placed in service. The booklet says March 15th, 2020. There was an update of May 15th, but we're going to stick with March 15th. And then we need to input his business miles. What are his business miles? So as we go back into the scenario, we see that it says he worked for multiple clients. He has a mileage log and he works for multiple clients. So when we go and we look at the first bullet that talks about his mileage from his home to his first client's home and mileage from his last client's home to his home, that's considered commuting miles. So we're actually going to put those miles, those 620, into commuting. Then it says, in addition, on the days Richard worked for multiple clients, he kept track of the mileage from his first client's home to the second client home in case that mileage was also deductible. That he logged 312 miles. So that is actually considered his business miles. So we're going to do 312. And then the total mileage on his car for the tax year was for 2020 was 9,543 miles. Of that, 8,611 were personal miles. So that would be, we would put that in category of other. So if we were to add the 866, the 620, and the 312, we should get the 9,543. And yes, I do. Then we have to go and answer these questions. Check if you have or if your spouse has another vehicle available for purchase. It stated that he placed his only vehicle, so we know he does not have a vehicle. Check if your vehicle was available for personal use. Yes, it was, because he does have personal miles. Check if you have evidence to support your deduction. He does. And we know that he has a mileage log, so it's written on there. So we've entered his mileage, and so we are able to hit continue. And we're going to hit continue again to get out of the mileage area. And so there were a few more expenses that were noted on here. And so we had the used lawnmower, we had the lunches, we had work clothes suitable for everyday use, and we had the lunch box of $25 that I did not enter in. So I'm going to go to other expenses, and this allows me to just type in a description. So I'm going to do the used lawnmower. And I'm going to do the 236. And actually, for the expenses, I'm actually going to stop right there for his business expenses. You may be asking, why not lunches? Well, for business meals, they actually have to be business, meeting with clients or potential clients related for business purposes. This just has lunches, and I like to tell everyone that everyone has to eat. So those are just personal lunches, and they do not qualify to be business expenses. So we will not be putting the lunches of $140 on the tax return. Also, I'm not going to include the work clothes suitable for everyday use, because hence it has suitable for everyday use. These are also for personal use that he would be able to wear these clothes. Nothing special where he's required maybe to wear scrubs, or there is a required attire for him that's specialized for his business. So we will not be putting the $175 on the tax return as well. Also, we will not be including the lunch box of $25, because again, that's also for personal use and kind of goes in hand with the lunches on there. So I'm going to hit continue. And we have entered in all of our business income and expenses that Richard provided to us. And going to continue, because TaxSlayer is going to calculate the self-employment tax, it's going to calculate the adjustment, it's going to calculate the qualified business income deduction for us. So we need to see if there is any additional income that he needs to report. Okay, and so we see that we've gotten his W-2 income, we've got his unemployment income, we have gotten his IRA, we have gotten his 1099 NEC, And so we have to enter in his cancellation of debt. His credit card company that settled his outstanding bill on that 1099-C. So when we scroll, we don't see on here that 1099-C, but it has on here less common income. On here and under the description, you see that it does have the cancellation of debt. So we're going to hit begin. And we're going to try to see if we can find that 1099-C, which we do, cancellation of debt. And we're going to hit begin. And we're going to go hit begin again to go to that form 1099-C. And it asks us for the creditor's name. So that is the Essex Bank. And we're going to enter in that EIN number. And the amount of debt that was canceled, which is the $775. So we're going to hit continue to get out of the cancellation of debt. And let's see if we have any additional income. So we have gotten his W-2 income. We have entered in the unemployment income. We have entered in the IRA distribution. We have entered in the cancellation of debt. So we have entered all the income that Richard has provided. Now I do know that it's stated on the income intake form under income for line 15 that it stated other income and he put gambling winnings, but he checked no. So on 15, it would then require us to ask Richard some additional questions about that gambling winnings. Did he actually receive gambling winnings? Did he receive a form? Or confirming was the gambling winnings actually for 2020 tax year? If we do find out that he did receive gambling winnings and there is a form, then we would pause on preparing his tax return on there. If it was like, oh no, it was actually for 2019, and confirming that he is for sure, we're able to proceed. Or if it was for 2021, then we would be able to proceed with the tax return. So at this point right now, we have entered in all of Richard's income into TaxSlayer. And at this point, we actually pause. So if you definitely have any additional questions, allow you to reach out to the panelist. And so this is actually going to conclude the training that we are doing today. So we will pick up for this part 2. It will be picking up on next Saturday, January the 16th. Will be part 2 for this live and recorded training. So we will finish up this scenario, and I do believe that there will be some additional time if you want to work on scenario 6 as well as 7. Once we finish scenario 8, you would be able to go into the publication 6744 and answer the questions as it relates to advanced scenario 8. We will again also be having another training that will be live on Thursday, January the 14th from 9 to 4. That will be another live, but this January the 14th, that Thursday will again be a repeat of today. You are not required. You do not have to log in or register for that one, but if you want to watch it again, you're more than welcome to sign up. As soon as this recording becomes available, we will have it posted on our YouTube channel for you to view. There is also another option to watching day 2 training. The live will be Friday, January the 15th from 9 to 4. So day training part 2 will be Friday, January the 15th from 9 to 4, as well as Saturday, January the 16th from 9 to 4. And you should be able to get a lot of that information from the Better Impact scene where you're able to register for those. I thank you all so much for bearing with us as we go. We presented this webinar. Again, you can still ask your questions to the panelists. We will still be on. We'll just be stopping the recording. No, don't close it yet. So I do see that there are some additional questions that's coming into the panelists about needing to complete other scenarios. So we will have some additional time remaining on day 2 if you want to work on your scenarios 6 and 7, and if you have some questions, you're able to complete it on your own time, or we will also be offering labs for you to be able to, if you want assistance or work with one of us as we're going through to assist you with those. So our labs, you should be able to find those on Better Impact as well. Those labs will be kicking off on January the 20th. We will be offering 2 labs on January the 20th. There will be a morning lab as well as an evening lab. And then the last lab, the third lab that we will be offering will be Saturday, January the 23rd. And I know that one is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you can also take a stab at doing the scenarios on your own and then coming in on those labs for additional assistance. You do not have to sit in the lab for the entire time that it's held, just to come in and get assistance with your scenarios if you like. Everyone again will be able to work on your scenarios at your leisure, just going into again the LinkedInLearnCertification.com, going to that website, because again we hope that you have already taken your ethics as well as your intake exam, but you will not log in. So just going to the LinkedInLearnCertification.com. To the right of that, under the quick links, you'll go into the practice lab, and the universal password is the Train Pro Web. Train Pro Web, which is all in capital letters. And then after you enter that one in, you will then enter in the username and the password that you created on today, or if you created it prior to today.